Welcome to the 8th chapter of the book of Mark. We're going to start with another feeding of the masses of people that were feeding Jesus. It sounds like it would be a duplication of the one before with a variant, but Jesus at the end mentions the two instances, so we know they are two separate instances of feeding these large numbers of people. It may have been more. It doesn't tell us in the Bible, just mentions these. And it begins in verse 1. In those days, a very great multitude being, and he's around the Lake of Galilee, and not having anything to eat, Jesus, having called his disciples, says to them, I am moved with compassion over the oklone. Oklophobia is a fear of a crowd. Derivative. For already, tris imeris. Tris, tri is three. Ephemeral for imeris. 3 days they remain with me and have not anything to eat. And remember I mentioned before the fog. Whenever you see the fog, has something to do with eating. Esophagus is the derivative. 3 days they hadn't had anything to eat. Well, years ago when I gave my life to the Lord, a couple of young men were going to the same church, and they mentioned that they were fasting. And I said, how long have you been fasting? And they said 3 days. And I just started laughing. In 3 days, well, I mean, that's nothing. People in the Bible fasted for a long, long time. And then so I tried it. And I never made it 3 days. It was horrible. It was very, very difficult. So 3 days without being with any food you get pretty hungry. And Jesus had felt sorry for these people. And he says, if I should release them hungry from fasting unto their house, they shall be fainting in the way. They may have come hundreds of miles from Tyre and Sidon and down in Jerusalem. For some of them have come from far off. And his disciples answered to him, saying, well, from what place shall any of these here be able to fill of bread at this desolate place? If you go back to 637, you'll see they had the same attitude when the 5,000, how can we feed them? Not even remembering what Jesus did. Amazing. And he asked them, how many breads have you? And they said, Eptas, 7. A heptad is a period of sevens and derivative. And he gave exhortation to the oklo to recline upon the geese, the ground. Geology is a derivative. So they went on the ground. It doesn't say like the last time in 50s or 100s. And having taken the 7 breads, Evcharistisas, Eucharist, having given thanks, he broke and gave to his disciples, that they should place them near. And they placed them near to the multitudes. So they gave these foods. And they had a few small fishes. And having blessed, he said to place them also near. And they ate and were filled and lifted up an abundance of pieces, 7 small baskets. So all these 4,000 people, as it mentions here, they all ate. Not only ate, they were filled. And after that, they pick up all the fragments of pieces, and there's 7 small baskets, more than when they had at the beginning. Jesus fills us more than we deserve or more than we can even understand. I think a lot of people that they come to be a Christian and you see all these things, but it's like, well, it happened to these disciples thousands of years ago, but it's not going to be me. I don't think that anything like that would possibly happen. So you go to church and you meet people and you talk to them, and a year goes by and a couple of years goes by, and then time keeps going, and all of a sudden during that time you start, all of a sudden you find a good job, and then you find a wife or a husband, and you start having children, and all of a sudden you may find some type of a a boat, a house or a trailer or whatever, and you get some type of way of transportation depending on the country, and people are listening here. It could be a horse or a trailer, it could be a wagon or an automobile or buses, whatever. All of a sudden, all these things start coming into place, and all of a sudden, after 20 years of walking with the Lord, you have all this abundance, way more than you would ever have thought that you would have had when you first started out. But God works in this way, and it's really an amazing thing, and I know a lot of people have experienced this. And the ones eating were about 4,000. If you don't have Jesus, doesn't mean you're not going to have things. Of course, some people are very rich and some people are poor, but I just don't see the poorness with the people that are walking with the Lord. And poorness may be compared to the United States and to a country in Africa, or a country in Asia, or a country in South America, but yet I think the people that love the Lord, He's going to take care of them. That's my belief. And may not be rich, but be taken care of. The few baskets and pieces of fish you had are going to turn into abundance. And He dismissed them. It was about 4,000. And immediately, having stepped into the boat with His disciples, He came into the parts of Dalmanutha. Mary, we have numerous, many parts. And we'll go up to the map, show you that where that is at. It is down here below this Tiberias. It doesn't have it on the map. But Dalmanutha was a little small town right down in next to the Sea of Galilee. And the Pharisees came forth and began to debate with Him, seeking from Him a sign from the heaven, testing Him. Again, the Pharisees we mentioned before would be like the modern-day Hasidim in Israel and other parts in big cities where you see these men walking around with these black coats, and generally they all have glasses and they have these furry hats or black fedora hats, and they study the Talmud, the Mishnah, Torah, and they see things and in those books, and when something doesn't go the way that those books show it, then they come to find out what's going on. And Jesus is definitely doing these things, but He's not doing it as a group of Hasidim. He's doing it on His own, with His own 12 disciples that He picked, His plain fishermen who didn't study the Talmud or the Mishnah or the Torah. They may have read it, but not like these people did. Maybe there was somebody in the 12 that did, but these people are coming, and what do they want? They are seeking a sign from the heaven. Well, if they see a sign, then they think they'll believe. But would they really? I don't believe so, because Jesus did many signs and they saw Him, they still didn't believe. What were they doing? They're testing Him. And the King James probably has tempting Him, because King James separated this word pirazo, 3985, into tempt and test. And I just put it all as testing. And having groaned in the pneumati of his spirit, He says, well, why does this Genea, generation, it's a transliteration, the G-E-N-E-R, G-E-N-E-A. Why does this generation seek anxiously a semeion? A semaphore is a derivative, a sign, a semaphore sign. Amen, I say to you, shall a sign be given to this generation? Well, in Matthew 12:40, it mentions when He's talking to these Pharisees that the sign of Jonah being 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the sea monster was a sign, but it leaves that out here. So will this generation be given a sign? Yes, it's going to be given the sign. There will be the cross raised up high. And then the open tomb where Jesus resurrects from the dead ones. Those are the signs. And having left them, again he stepped into the boat, and he went unto the other side. Doesn't say where, but right here. But he went back into the boat. And they forgot to take breads, the disciples, and except for one bread, they did not have any with themselves in the boat. And he warned them, saying, See, take heed from the yeast, or of the yeast, zemis, enzyme. The zyme, zemis, comes from that, a derivative of the Pharisees and of the yeast of Herod. The sins or the deception of these people. The yeast. And they reasoned with one another, allelus, saying that, well, we do not have breads. Forgot to take bread. That's what he's talking about, the yeast. He's talking in parables all the time. They're probably wondering everything he says, trying to figure it out. And knowing, Jesus says to them, and he was speaking in a parable, Jesus says to them, Why do you reason that you do not have breads? Not yet do you comprehend or perceive? Do you still have your heart being calloused? Well, the heart isn't calloused. It doesn't get a callus like on your elbow or callus on the bottom of your foot, someplace, or on your hand. It's a heart. It's in between. So he says this is a figure of speech. So many figures of speech in the Bible. It's just amazing. There's been great books. I have one right behind me here in the 1700s by Benjamin Keach, which I doubt if you can find, but E.W. Bullinger has a great one. He'd put together figures of speech. It was in the 1800s, and that one you can purchase. And do you not comprehend? Having eyes, ophthalmologist, has to do with eyes. Do you not see? And ota, having ears, do you not acuite, acoustics? And do you not remember? Remember what? What is he talking about? Well, we have ears, we hear, and we see. I don't know what he's talking about. When the 5 breads I broke for the 5,000. How many hampers full of pieces did you lift? How many did we lift? There was 5,000. How many did we lift? 12. And when the 7 for the 4,000, just then, and right before here, how many small baskets full of pieces did you lift? And they said, 7? He said to them, how do you not perceive? How do you not perceive? He's doing these miracles, and they're seeing all these things, and they don't understand. But what we mentioned is the enemies of Jesus perceived better than the disciples did, because they knew what he was talking about when he claimed to raise from the dead in 3 days, because they said to put a stone in front of the tomb. But the disciples didn't see it. Well, how much do we see and how much do we miss? Probably a lot. And he comes unto Bethsaida, so they're on the other side. So let's go back up to that map. And so he was down here, and so they went all the way up to Bethsaida here across the Sea of Galilee. So that's they may have went across some other way and went up there, but anyway, they're now up in Bethsaida. And they bring to him a blind man and appeal to him that he should touch him. Now, he's been to Bethsaida before, so they know who he is. They know what he can do. And they are bringing people to him, and in this case, a blind man. And they appeal to him that he should touch him. And taking hold of the hieros, chiropractor is a derivative of the blind man, he led him an exoderm, the exit outside of the town. And I think he did that the last time he healed the blind. And having spit into his eyes, spits right into his eyes. Says spit out in the mud in other places and made it in spittle into the dirt and made mud out of it. And having placed his hands to him, he asks him if he sees anything. And having looking up, he said, I see the men as dendras, trees walking. A dendrite is a formation in minerals, stone that looks like a tree limbs going out. Walking, peripatuntus, the walkers, the peripatetics. I see men as trees walking. Wasn't clear. Strange, isn't it? Then again he placed the hands upon his eyes, and he made him to look up. So now he's looking up. Instead, the first time he saw the trees, I don't know. Why didn't it the first time did the man, he's looking at people and saw them as trees, but he didn't look up into heaven. I don't know. Maybe that's got something here that he made him to look up this time. And he was restored and looked clearly on all. Maybe that's a good lesson for us. If we look at the things we ask God and we look at man to do the healing or the supply or be the solution, then we maybe just get a partial healing because we're looking at man to do these things. But yet if we look up, this is what Jesus was always doing. He's looking up to his Father in heaven, someplace up, wasn't looking down. So God is way out. He's not micro, he's macro, as I see it. And he looked up and he was restored and looked clearly on all. So now he could see everything. He's looking around. And he sent him unto his house, saying, Jesus sent the man to his house, saying, well, neither into the town should you enter, nor should you speak to any in the town. Wow, this is really amazing. He doesn't want him to go back into the town and doesn't want to tell anybody in the town that Jesus does this a lot. I was going to write a list and I never did, but there's a list of, it would be nice to have this list of all the places that Jesus told someone or some group or something to not do something, but they did the opposite, thinking to be doing a good thing. And Jesus went forth and his disciples into the towns of Caesarea of Philippi. Caesarea Philippi. We can go up to the map. And here's Caesarea Philippi, right up here above this Lake Huli. It's right off the map. It's a little bitty town. So Jesus has went up there. And Jesus went forth and his disciples into the town of Caesarea Philippi. And in the way he asks his disciples, saying to them, well, who do men say me to be? And they answered, John, the one immersing, who was killed by Herod. And others, Elijah. And others, one of the prophets. And he says to them, and you, who do you say me to be? And you is in the plural. In answering, Peter says to him, you are the Christ. And he gave reproach to them that to no one they should tell concerning him. Peter, in John 1:42, Jesus says more. Cox says, you are Peter. Cephas is Peter in a piece of rock. And upon this, basically the confession, I will build my assembly, the Petra, which is not Petros. Petra is a large rock. But this is left out here. And he began to teach them that it is necessary for the Son of Man to suffer many things. Pathin, pathetic, pathos, suffer, and be rejected by the presbyteron, the elders, and the archiereon, the chief priests, and the grammateon, the scribes. Grammar is the derivative, and be killed. And not only that, after 3 days, Trisimeris rise up. It tells them all of this. In an open manner, he spoke the matter. And Peter, taking him to himself, began to reproach him. And he turned, and beholding his disciples, looked around, and he sees the disciples, and Peter reproaching him. What does he say? Go behind me, Satana. Go behind me, Satan. Satana is Satan. It's interesting in doing this word, 4567. 4567 is Satan. He says, go behind me. Satan, it's an adversary. Satan is mentioned as an adversary in 1 Kings 11:14 with Hadad the Edomite, and in verse 23 of the same chapter of a Rezon. And then in 1 Kings 11:25, he's an adversary. The adversary, not a Satan as we think of it. And then in 1 Chronicles 21:1, it says that Satan caused him to count the people. But the adversary, and so I don't, does he really mean he's Satan? Get behind me, or get behind me, adversary. Satanas only appears in the New Testament, and in the book of Revelations, Satanas is tied into the beast, or not the beast, to the serpent, which was, the serpent was in Genesis, and the Diavolos, which was in Job in the Old Testament, and Satanas in the New Testament is the same. It says that in the book of Revelation. So you can do a study on 45, 66, and 67 in your Apostolic Bible and the Lexical Concordance. Really a good study to make to see who our enemy is. Someone was, if you don't know who your enemy is, then it's hard to go to war against them. And then he says, for you do not think the things of God, but the things of men, saying that to Peter. And having called the multitude with his disciples, he said to them, well, whosoever wants to come after me, let him totally reject himself and lift his cross and follow me. What's interesting, why did he say the cross? Because they really don't understand. He says that he is going to die and resurrect, but the cross, I think it's a sort of a hidden meaning to them that he's going to die by the cross. But yet, whether they understood this or not, what he was talking about, I don't know. For whoever should want to preserve his psyche, psychology, study of life, psyche, will lose it. And whoever should lose his life because of me and the evangeliu, the good news, this one will preserve it. And losing your life doesn't necessarily, it could be a figure here of giving your life to Christ. And you'll be preserving your life. But if you want the things of this world and not Christ, then you're going to lose. For what will it benefit a man, anthropon, Ophelia, beneficial? It's a derivative for a woman's name. What will it benefit a man if he should gain the whole cosmon and suffer loss of his psyche? Or what shall a man give as a bargain for his soul? Well, a lot of people give a lot of things for their soul. They bargain for power, money, sex, drugs, you name it. There's just all kinds of things that people want rather than Jesus. And that's what they're bargaining for. You're basically trading eternal life for alcohol or having a good time with women and all these different things. For whoever should be ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, even the Son of Man shall be ashamed of him whenever he should come in the glory of his Father with his holy angels. If you go to Matthew 24, 30 and 31, Jesus mentions how he's going to come with from the heaven, from the Father and the angels, and they're going to sound the trumpet, and he's going to take some people, and other people are going to be left. One in the field, and one will be taken. One in the bed, another will be taken. We need to watch our actions and behavior and heart, not to have the callous heart, and to obey. And it's a sinful generation, and we're living in a sinful generation. That was a sinful generation. Every generation is probably sinful, and ours certainly leads all of them, I think. It seems like there's just all kinds of horrible things a person can fall into so easily. And maybe that's the key. Is so easy in this generation to fall into these things. It's like everywhere, so you can have them. And but when he comes, you don't want to be caught unaware. Next chapter, we'll continue with Jesus with his disciples as he goes up onto the mountain and is transformed there into what he was like when he came, or what he was like where he was before he came, maybe. It's a better explanation. A wonderful, fascinating chapter, and I hope you'll join us in chapter 9, and God bless.